Hello everyone, this is Charles Folkart on March 8th, 2017. Welcome everyone, especially those new here and those of you who have subscribed. I would encourage you, or at least consider subscribing. I mentioned before we get to the 1,000 mark of subscribers, we have other options, and I think we'll be able to make good use of those options. And I ran across this quote from one of my favorite authors, Fyodor Dostoevsky. He's Russian, very deep thinker. I like his books. And this quote says, "It seems, in fact, as though the second half of a man's life is usually made up of nothing but the habits he has accumulated during the first half." And I'm finding that to be true, and that's why I'm so glad that in the first half of my life I spent time, usually every day, not all the time, but in the book of Proverbs. I would start reading the Word of God. I'd begin there with a cup of coffee, and I would read through that chapter. I know today is March the 8th, and I wanted to tell you about a little incident that happened a couple weeks ago. I had a problem here, the overflow of the drain lines. It got a couple of the rugs here soaking wet. I had to go into town. I went to the laundromat to wash the rugs, and rather than sit in the cold laundromat alone, I went across the street, and that's not something I usually do, but I went into the pub. And I don't usually go into pubs because they got the flat screens everywhere, and the baseball, the football, the sports, all the monkeys playing, and everybody's drinks too much. But it was in the late afternoon, and I thought, I haven't done this in quite a while. It's something I'm going to do. I went in and ordered a local beer. Sat down next to a guy, and he's a pretty friendly guy. He says, "Have a seat," And I started talking to him. And actually, he was doing the talking to me. Obviously, he had already had a drink or two, and but hey, I like to have a conversation with a fella, and he immediately told me, let me know that he was pretty affluent, pretty wealthy guy, had a house up in Whitefish, and he was moving from Whitefish to near where I live here now, and he was going to sell his place up there, and he's going to buy a condo down here, and he has a place in Florida. And then he told me that he was an insurance salesman. Told me his age. He was 77 years old, and he was beginning to unload his properties. He liked this northwest Montana area, so back several years ago he started buying single-family homes for $30,000 and $40,000, and now they're worth a lot more than what he paid for them. So he was pretty proud of himself, letting me know that he was a successful businessman. And so right away I caught on that this guy was going to try to impress me, and so I started playing the game too. So he would say something like, "We have a yacht down in Florida," and I go, "Oh, so you like to sail, do you?" And he goes, yeah, and so I say, I had a plane once. I'm a pilot. So, and then he didn't ask me any questions. Then he went on. He says, "Yeah, we used to sail down in the Caribbean, and we went here and there." And I go, "Yeah, I like the Caribbean. I was the manager of a hotel in Corn Island, Nicaragua." So he didn't ask me about it. I just as part of the conversation, I wasn't trying to impress him, but he was trying to impress me. So I wanted to let him know that I'm not just the average Joe off of the street. And so then he said, "Well, I worked in Los Angeles area, and And out there, I forget where he said, not Malibu, but somewhere, Long Beach. I had an office in Long Beach, and an office here, and an office there. And I go, oh, really? He goes, yeah, we used to sail down to the west coast of Mexico, and he mentioned a couple places like Mazatlan and Puerto Vallarta, and I said, yeah, I've been there, you know. So every time he would say something that he was trying to impress me or let me know that of all the things he had done, I had an equal retort or response. And I was asking him some more questions, and I knew he was 77 years old. He was born outside of Michigan. That's where I'm from. And I mentioned to him, oh, you're accumulating property. I used to be a real estate developer. See, I had to, in order to continue the conversation on an even keel, I had to provide information that he wasn't necessarily soliciting from me. He wasn't asking me questions. And I kept thinking of Proverbs chapter 1, verse 5. A wise man will hear and will increase learning. A wise man will listen and increase learning. And I began to realize that this fellow really wasn't a very wise man because he was doing all the talking. And at the end of our conversation, pretty much, he gave me this pen, and his phone number's on the pen. And I asked him, I said, oh, do you answer your own phone? Oh, yeah, I answer my own phone, no problem. So I go, okay. And I heard him talking to the lady, the bartender, or the barista, they call him now. And she had a very bad sore throat and cold, and he was telling her that he was going to bring some antibiotic or some medicine that he had taken, and it was very helpful to him, and he was going to be back on Friday. This was Wednesday, he'd be back on Friday. So I heard that, and then he left, and I started talking to the lady, and I said, you know what I do when I get a cold like that? I take some clove of garlic, and I slice it up real thin as possible, and I lay it on my throat, lay it in my tongue, and I let it soak the garlic and run down my throat. And I take some lemon, and I take some honey, and I mix it all together, and I take that, and it goes down, and it usually will take care of whatever problem I'm having. I may have to repeat the process a couple times, and I told her I haven't had a cold in probably 20 years, and about 2-3 weeks ago I had this problem with sneezing for the first time in 20 years, and I started doing this, and it took care of it within a few hours. I only had that problem one day. So rather than take all those pills and pharmaceuticals, I suggested she try this. These are naturopathic or homeopathic remedies that I think work much, much better and are better for you. So I relayed that to her. And then I went home and I had this fellow's pen. And I don't meet too many people around. There's a lot of wealthy people in this area. So he did give me his pen. So I figured, well, he wants me to call him. And so, he was telling me about, he was 77 years old. I don't know if I forget if I mentioned this or not, but he's 77 years old, and I think he's beginning to realize he can't take his wealth with him. So he's unloading his properties, and he's been selling several of the homes, and he's going to buy this condo down here in my area, because he has the lake here, Flathead Lake, and he wants to sail on Flathead Lake. So, but he gave me this pen with his phone number, and he said he answers his phone. So Friday morning, late Friday morning, early afternoon, I said, you know what? Being retired myself, I'm going to give this guy a call. He hooked me. I fell for it. I called him, and he didn't answer his phone. So I said, okay, he's busy. So I left a message. He's got voicemail. I left a message. Hey, this is Charles. We met the other day at the pub. I know he knows who I am. You gave me your pen. I thought I'd call you. I heard you're going to be in town on Friday. So that was 2 weeks ago, and I haven't heard from him since. He hasn't called me back, and I don't think he ever will. And, it's very disappointing when you meet people like that really have no interest in anyone but themselves. They're not interested in you. They're not interested in what you do. They're not interested in what you think. And that's the habit that this man has accumulated during the first half of his life. And I wanted today just to bring that up. There's a lot of wisdom in the Bible, especially in Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, King Solomon. He mentions in chapter 1, a wise man will listen, a wise man will hear and increase learning, and a man of understanding shall attain unto wise counsels. So that man may have been very wealthy. He may have been able to accumulate a lot of things, material things, yacht, what have you. He told me that he insured $1 million lots. So his whole life was, or most of his life, was engaging with people that made a lot of money. And I have found in my lifetime that just because you make a lot of money, that doesn't mean you're an interesting person. That doesn't mean you're a successful person. That doesn't mean that you have led an interesting life, because Americans are more concerned and more caught up with, or their focus is more on material things rather than experiences. See, he didn't relate the experiences that he had while he was in his yacht and in those places, which is what I would do. I can tell you story after story of my experiences that I've spent in other parts of the world, in other occupations, other experiences that I've had in different times of my life, etc. But this man was all about his yachts, his homes, his houses he bought, and he was beginning to realize that he's 77 years old now, and he's not going to be able to take it with him. And the point I want to make is, we take the wisdom that we learn, we take our experiences that we accumulate during our lifetime, we take them with us into the next life. I am convinced of that. Scripture tells us that. Scripture tells us that what does it profit a man if he gain the whole world and lose his own soul? And this man, I think he was going to lose his own soul. He had gained the world, but he had lost his soul. So here I'm going to have Alexander Scorby read you Proverbs chapter 8, and I hope you enjoy It's the book on wisdom. Chapter 8 is all about wisdom, in praise of wisdom. So let's go have a listen to and read Proverbs 8, shall we?
Chapter 8. Doth not wisdom cry, and understanding put forth her voice? She standeth in the top of high places, by the way in the places of the paths. She crieth at the gates, at the entry of the city, at the coming in at the doors. Unto you, O men, I call, and my voice is to the sons of men. O ye simple, understand wisdom, and ye fools, be ye of an understanding heart. Hear, for I will speak of excellent things, and the opening of my lips shall be right things. For my mouth shall speak truth, and wickedness is an abomination to my lips. All the words of my mouth are in righteousness. There is nothing froward or perverse in them. They are all plain to him that understandeth, and right to them that find knowledge. Receive my instruction, and not silver, and knowledge rather than choice gold. For wisdom is better than rubies, and all the things that may be desired are not to be compared to it. I, wisdom, dwell with prudence, and find out knowledge of witty inventions. The fear of the Lord is to hate evil. Pride and arrogancy, and the evil way, and the froward mouth do I hate. Counsel is mine, and sound wisdom. I am understanding. I have strength. By me kings reign, and princes decree justice. By me princes rule, and nobles, even all the judges of the earth. I love them that love me, and those that seek me early shall find me. Riches and honor are with me, yea, durable riches and righteousness. My fruit is better than gold, yea, than fine gold, and my revenue than choice silver. I lead in the way of righteousness in the midst of the paths of judgment, that I may cause those that love me to inherit substance, and I will fill their treasures. The Lord possessed me in the beginning of his way, before his works of old. I was set up from everlasting, from the beginning, or ever the earth was. When there were no depths, I was brought forth, when there were no fountains abounding with water. Before the mountains were settled, before the hills was I brought forth, while as yet he had not made the earth, nor the fields, nor the highest part of the dust of the world. When he prepared the heavens, I was there. When he set a compass upon the face of the depth, when he established the clouds above, when he strengthened the fountains of the deep, when he gave to the sea his decree, that the waters should not pass his commandment, when he appointed the foundations of the earth. Then I was by him, as one brought up with him, and I was daily his delight, rejoicing always before him, rejoicing in the habitable part of his earth, and my delights were with the sons of men. Now therefore hearken unto me, O ye children, for blessed are they that keep my ways. Hear instruction, and be wise, and refuse it not. Blessed is the man that heareth me, watching daily at my gates, waiting at the posts of my doors. For whoso findeth me, findeth life, and shall obtain favor of the Lord. But he that sinneth against me wrongeth his own soul. All they that hate me love death.
I am so thankful that I made it a habit. The habits we have accumulated during the first half of our life are the ones that we use, and our life is made up of those habits in the second half of a man's life. And I couldn't help but appreciate Proverbs 8:18. Riches and honor are with me, yea, durable riches and righteousness. My fruit, the fruit of wisdom, is better than gold, yea, than fine gold, and my revenue than choice silver. As I've related in the other videos, previous videos, when I was about 45, my government, through the federal bankruptcy court in San Francisco, they took away all of my wealth, and I was never able to regain that wealth again. And so I've had to learn by experience what Paul talks about in Philippians. He was initiated into the mysteries. I learned to live when I was in Thailand on less than $700 a month, and many times I wouldn't get paid, and so I didn't even have $700 a month. But Paul says in Philippians chapter 4, I know both how to be abased and I know how to abound. Everywhere and in all things I am instructed both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. I can do all things through Christ who strengthened me. And basically what he's saying there, I have been instructed, I have been initiated into the mysteries. I remember one time I was in Thailand. I know exactly where I was, and I know exactly which building I was in, and I was down to $5 U.S. money. And I had to call my mother. I was close to 50 years old at the time. I had to call my mother to get a loan. And if you don't think that's humiliating to where you're down and you're 50 years old and you're down to your last $5 U.S. It was about 200 baht, I believe, if I remember right. But here I am. I made it. I survived. And here's this man I met the other day. He's 77 years old, and basically he's an unhappy man because he has nothing in his life other than the things that he has, and he's unloading those things. His life, his first half of his life consisted of the accumulation of things, yacht and houses and financial. He kept telling me about, this property is worth $500,000 and his condo is worth that, and so it's all about the money and the wealth. And I could tell that he was basically a pretty unhappy man because his first half of his life was nothing but accumulating things, and things don't bring you happiness. The wisdom of God, the fear of God, and doing what you know God wants you to do, that is the secret to living a successful life. Thank you for watching. Embrace the love of the truth, and may God the Father, the Creator, the producer, the author of wisdom that we read about in Proverbs and in chapter 8, be with us all, for we certainly need it. See you.